Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Trader Merlin Show for your trading week wrap-up. I apologize ahead of time for my sniffles. My sinuses are still a mess. Hopefully, it will be much better by Sunday when I do my panel presentations. And my presentations on Monday, as you guys know, I will be at the Money Show in Las Vegas. Hopefully having a great time and meeting some new people and meeting some of you guys if you're going to be out there. Again, I have presentations on Monday. This is a list of all of the presentations I will be doing in panels, and I may be drawn into some other ones as we progress through this. But I'm really excited about the two panels there. There's some on stablecoins, tokenization, that I think are going to be really interesting for those of you who don't know where things are headed. There are things afoot right now in that space that I think will have a lot of naysayers going, oh, well, maybe it is a legitimate asset class. And I'll share some of that with you today. Things like BlackRock's connectivity and who they're connecting to. Pump the Bitcoin next week. I'm not here to pump. I'm not a pumper. I'm more of a spread the knowledge about an asset class. And, if that asset class succeeds as I think it will, then I'll be on the right side of history. If it goes down in a ball of fire, as some people believe, then, I'll look like a schmuck. But hopefully I'm not on the wrong side of this one. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about that, the tokenization side of things. Really, BlackRock, as I dig deeper into what BlackRock is doing, I'm surprised. Does anybody have an idea? Type in a chat if you know what BlackRock is doing with regards to tokenization. I mean, we all hear Larry Fink say, we're going to be the leaders in tokenization. He said in a few years, everything will be on the blockchain and they want to have everything RWA. You also have the chairman of the SEC saying all securities are going to be on the blockchain here soon. And if that's not a wake-up call for everybody, I don't know what is, Big Eb says, I don't trust Larry Fink. Very valid point. There is a non mi fido di nessuno is my phrase I use in Italian, which means I don't trust anybody, right? Yeah, you shouldn't trust Jamie Dimon. You shouldn't trust Larry Fink. You shouldn't trust, Jim Cramer. You shouldn't trust anybody. DYOR. But what BlackRock is doing, and I didn't mean to start the show with this today, but here we are. BlackRock is testing the waters on digitizing a money market fund. It's called BUIDL, and I have a long acronym for you that I could... Up to you, Dan. I mean, I like to think I'm a very trustworthy person. You can do searches on me. I've not been, knock on wood, I have not been named in any lawsuits. I've had, obviously I might ruffle some people's feathers by a comment I make every now and again, but from a trust factor, I got no reason to lie to you. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just giving you information. So thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. And I honestly, I pride myself on having people who trust me. Not just you guys, but my circle of friends and family as well. I think part of the integrity of a human being is to have trust and know that you are trusted. Therefore, if you're not trusted, I'll be honest, I don't like being around people I don't trust. You guys might remember the name I've been calling out a long time, which I will now, he's always been referred to as Voldemort from now on. But this guy, in my opinion, is just a liar, Chicago floor trader liar, and no trust whatsoever. I don't want to even be near that guy. Anyway, so let me explain a little bit about what BlackRock is doing. So BlackRock wants to be the leader in pretty much everything to do with tokenization and real-world assets. So we can all participate in money market funds, right? You can deposit your money in a money market fund and you earn some interest-bearing account. Those are securitized. Those are securities. Right now, BlackRock has a money market fund that is fully tokenized. Now, you and I don't have access to this. Well, I'll take that back. I don't have access to it because I'm not an accredited investor. I never filled out any paperwork. I don't have any accounts that are over their threshold in one location because I spread mine around. But essentially, if you are an accredited investor, you could get access to this, and it's a tokenized money market fund. It's a security. It pays yield. You get the money market fund interest. But here's the interesting part. If you own a money market fund, it sits in an account and you can pretty much do nothing with it. If you have BUIDL, sorry, I always get the acronym back, which is some long acronym for BlackRock, US dollar utility thing. If you own those tokens, you can now use those tokens as collateral for other investments. That's something we can't do in today's traditional market. So they're testing the waters on the ability for this to be collateralized. It also can be sent instantly as opposed to taking days to transfer. As you guys know, if you try to send a security from one brokerage firm to another take a long time. It used to be something called an ACAT form, which took up to 2 weeks to process. Ridiculous in this day and age. More importantly, as I'm digging deeper into this, one thing that I want to know is, okay, BlackRock's pushing right now, it's just this money market fund. But what we're seeing is one of the largest real world asset classes that's being tokenized right now, treasuries. Treasuries are booming right now because it's, as Big Ed would tell you, he does ladders with that. It's not the easiest system to work with going to Treasury Direct, etc. But if you have tokens now that you can swap, super easily transfer, there's a centralized marketplace, you can just bam, 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 bam. All of a sudden, now you have way better liquidity, easier access to the markets. What interest does the fund pay? The current going money market fund rate. The big difference here in something like USDC, remember USDC is a stable coin. USDC has to buy into cash, treasuries, and repo market. Well, BlackRock's money market tokenization fund, BUIDL, is in cash, treasuries, and repo market. They're in the exact same instruments. However, legally, BlackRock's BUIDL fund can pay interest. It pays yield. Where technically, and now with the eyes of the regulators, and we'll see what happens at the Senate when the Clarity Act gets voted up or down, if that goes through as is today, Circle will not be able to pay out that interest. So structurally, they're almost identical. They're both on the Ethereum blockchain. Get that one real quick. That's an important piece to remember. BUIDL is on the Ethereum blockchain, not their own layer 2, just plugs directly into the Ethereum blockchain. So does Circle. So at face value, these things are identical. However, BUIDL, which is BlackRock's product, has all the regulatory approval. It's gone through all the channels. It is a security. So that's why you can't buy it at Coinbase, right? You can't buy it at Coinbase because they can't sell securities. So really kind of interesting. Wolf says, can't one of these banks just tokenize Bitcoin so they can pay interest? That's, I think, the future. I think that's what's coming. I think they don't even need to tokenize Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a digital asset. And some would call it a token. It's really a coin. But you can use Bitcoin as collateral for loans. And I think that should be something that a lot of people look at and go, that is a very interesting piece from an economic growth perspective because I've got a lot of Bitcoin. I don't want to sell it. But if I can now take that Bitcoin and get a loan and buy a new property with it and still keep my Bitcoin knowing I'm holding it long term, I think that's a huge win. I think Big Ed might think that as well because he's got some Bitcoin and I know others of you do too. So yeah, you can use Bitcoin as collateral, but it's a commodity. So it's not like, not everybody will accept Bitcoin as collateral. Whereas with BUIDL, they would because it's a security. It's tracked. It's gone through all the loopholes. It's legit. Circle still is not quite there. The other piece that I find interesting is if you own the BUIDL fund, which is BlackRock's tokenized money market, you have a claim against the pool of assets. So if you ever want to redeem it, you're basically taking it out of that pool of money. With Circle, your token gives you no claim against the pool of assets. You have a claim against the issuer. You have the claim against Circle. So if Circle goes under, you could lose all your money. So there are definitely risks there, even though it's collateralized. So these are, high level. I can spend much more time in my presentation going over these ones. But just, this is the forefront. You're watching one of the biggest financial firms in the world actively out there saying, hey, let's tokenize a money market fund and see how it works. Let's plug into Ethereum so we don't have to do the work ourselves. We'll just go to an open chain. Then they're going to go into bond markets. Then they're going to go into other securities. And pretty soon, all these things will be on a blockchain. And I think the reason I brought this up is Circle, it's on Ethereum. Coinbase, their layer 2 is on Ethereum. Robinhood's layer is on Ethereum. BlackRock, plugging into directly Ethereum. Who could potentially be the backbone of all of this if it continues at this trend? Ethereum. Doesn't look good right now, but 3 to 5 years from now, I think Ethereum is going to flip Bitcoin because it's going to be used by so many institutions. Circle, Owen, is a stable coin. It's pegged to stay at $1. Think of it like just a digital dollar. That's pretty much what it is. Okay, let me move on from that one. That was not supposed to be the starting piece today. This was supposed to be the starting piece, talking about the Supreme Court versus Trump. And if you listen to Scott Bessent's talk today, I don't know if anybody caught what Scott Bessent said. It was kind of humorous. Scott Bessent basically said, excuse me, Scott Bessent basically said, this was not a ruling against Trump. Well, yeah, it was. It was 6-3 in favor of the use of his powers did not go through the proper channels. And again, this is what I mentioned yesterday. You know, you do have, let's look at the facts here. The short story here is, and I see what is the crime jumping in here to give us the details of it. Okay. First, it was 6-3 against the Trump tariffs. Not everything, but anything that he used, this IEEPA, which is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. With that, that's supposed to go through Congress. It's supposed to have checks and balances, I mentioned yesterday. And because it did not, a lot of these tariffs were not voted on by Congress, those ones were removed, okay? The problem I see is, this IEEPA is used for national emergencies involving financial threats. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't think that this was a national emergency. I think we could have done a little bit better, but I don't think it was a national emergency. So that's the first piece of it. This part I thought was really interesting. It could lead to refunds. Now, we talked about this on yesterday's show, like which way we think the markets are going to go if this gets struck down. And I thought we'd see a bearish move. I thought we'd see it just sell off. Well, look at the S&P. I'll bring up a 5-minute chart here for today. Boy, oh boy. We had initially a sharp decline, and then the market just shrugged it off and rallied. And I don't know. I'm stymied in trying to anticipate which way it was going to go, because I could make an argument on why the markets rallied. And of course, after the fact, when we get to the closing bell, everyone says, oh, well, markets rallied on this because of optimism and, lower tariffs for more countries. That's better for economic growth around the board and better for businesses. Here we go. Okay, I could see that argument. If the markets tanked and ended down 2% of the day, they would have said, well, this is not good for the economy. This is really bad. There's always some excuse for it. It was an awesome 40-point pop. Absolutely. So, Wolf says, although Congress uses, I do think the tariffs should be run through Congress. It's just simply too much. I agree with you. And this has nothing to do with my opinions of President Trump. Let's be clear. It could be anybody. It could be, Richard Nixon. It could be Bill Clinton. I don't want one person to arbitrarily be able to slap these tariffs and basically one individual speak for every one of us. It should go through our registered representatives. And if that takes a couple more days, a couple weeks, I think that that's probably the prudent thing to do, because I think at this point we look kind of silly when we make these knee-jerk reactions. It should go through a process. More money available for consumption. Exactly. And while I agree with you on that one, Andres, look at the last words of this slide. Could lead to refunds. So remember those $2,000 checks you thought you might be getting, as President Trump was talking about during his campaign? It's going to be huge. You can get everybody $2,000 checks. It's going to be fantastic. No one's ever done this. It's just me. Well, I'll tell you what. That the estimates are between $140 billion and $200 billion collected from tariff revenue. That's a tax. The Supreme Court's not ruling on that. That's going to lower court systems. But if all of a sudden the lower court systems say we owe refunds, that puts us in further deficit. That debt clock I was showing you, that's going to make that situation even worse. Now, President Trump is immediately, and I don't like this either, immediately going after all the ones that voted against him and call them idiots, calling them wimps, calling them traitors, and things like that. Look, you had people on your team that voted against you. Kavanaugh voted, it was Gorsuch and Barrett voted for going against these tariffs. So two of Trump's appointed, remember he's appointed 3 people. 2 of the 3 went against Trump. And it's funny how he's very bitter and angry and, slamming people and throwing names at him. I think that there's a better way to handle it. Either way. They also went right away into new tariff structures. So there's Section 122. I wrote a whole bunch of them down, but I don't have them here with me. There's basically a series of different sections within the law, Section 122, Section 232, and Section 301, which do allow the president to directly impose a tax, but for other reasons. So he's just finding another way to make it happen. I think that there's a general sigh of relief because that 10% across the board, which we called, Liberation Day, those tariffs are going to be removed. And basically, it invalidates the tariffs. And again, not all of them. It's just the ones that he used at IEPA and then didn't go through Congress. If he went through Congress and got approval for some of them, then those will stand. But it basically invalidates Liberation Day tariffs and those 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico goods. He will find another way to put taxes on those. So from a market perspective, this is pretty big news. It just steers up confusion in the U.S. Some people I talked to said this is good because now we have clarity. And I would argue, no, we don't. We have clarity in one sense is he can't use the specific set of rules, which is the IEEPA, to do tariffs unless he goes through Congress. But he has all these other ones that he can use. And so now for me, the future's, like Big Eb says, clear as mud. Yeah, I agree. I think this makes things worse because I don't know about Section 122 or 232 or 301 or what other sections the president wants to utilize to push tariffs onto other countries. And, I can't imagine it would be increasing anything, but it's just a what if. It's that unknown part that we're going to have to struggle with for quite some time or for a while. Does Trump go back to Congress and say, hey, okay, I didn't go through with you on the first time. Let's vote on this one and try that way. That would be the right way to do it, in my opinion, would be to have a vote on this matter. But anyway, major piece. I'm curious to see what the chippiness is over the weekend and what the press conference stuff is. I'll try not to watch much of it. I like to watch it just because the humor behind it all. I think it's just a silly theatrical act. But this was the big stuff today that caused our markets to have a great day. Let me bring up, I did not sell calls against my Tesla today. We'll look at that one here in a second. Didn't he say he didn't want to work with them? I didn't catch that, Atticus, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if he was like, I don't want to work with them. It's like, look, they're half your people. They're half Republicans. You should do it. Exactly. He still controls the Congress, still controls the Senate, House of Representatives. Exactly. I agree. I think he could do it if he wanted to. So that would be the right thing. Right? I think we'd all agree that's the right thing. If you're going to use the IEEPA, then use it the right way. Instead, I think he's going to go around it and try to just do it himself and be like, well, I'm just going to do it. We'll see. We'll see what ultimately ends up being. At least this is off the table right now as far as the decision. We know the decision. We'll see what happens for the market going forward. I think it's uncertainty. I thought we'd see a down day, but as you guys can see here, we had a nice update today. I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. Dollar index was just slightly down today, pretty much unchanged, down 0.03. Same thing for the Russell. Look at the interesting pattern forming on the Russell. Right? I drew this line here, these diagonal lines going across the lows and across the highs. And I just connected it with the first 2 points. But it has respected that thing 3 times in a row. Very interesting. And you can see it slowly making higher. It's slowly creeping up as a real body, but it's staying within this range. So I feel like we're gaining strength on the Russell 2000 based off this chart, even though it was down 0.01%. Today actually looks like a pretty positive day because it respected that uptrend line from the bottom there. So nice. Dan says, I don't watch the news. Watch the Olympics. Elisa Lau was awesome. Yeah, there was a couple. I like I can't remember her name. Last name was Gu. Her press conference was awesome. Absolutely awesome. When that reporter asked her if she felt like she, missed out on these medals, she goes, are you kidding me? You can't be serious. I'm one of the most decorated athletes in the history of skiing and in winter sports, and you're asking me if my 2 silvers were a letdown? You try. I'm very proud of it. I was like, good for you. Good for you, girl. Good for you. Yes, Olympics are awesome. Let's bring in more international competition. I don't know if you guys saw the U.S. women's hockey game. Sorry for my Canadians, my neighbors to the north over there. But, man, that was a fantastic finish yesterday for the U.S. women's team. I think the men's is Sunday morning, bright and early. All right, anyway, I'll get to Olympic recap here. I'm a huge fan of them. I wish they would come around more often, right? We can put aside politics. We can put aside religion and just compete. We're all on this planet together. Let's compete. All right, crude oil. Crude oil, I had the opinion that this is going to continue to move higher. It did today. Not much. It was only up 0.12%. But there's, a lot of concern about what might happen this weekend. Candle Swinger here says, will the bombs fly before or after the State of the Union address? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really, with this guy, I have no clue. I personally, I feel like we're going to do something. I don't think it's going to be a major offensive. I think it's going to be a real quick thing, just a shock and awe, like, hey, you see what we're capable of here in a 10-second window of time. Don't mess with this for like a couple of months. We will see. Louis says before. I'm not sure. I was really considering taking home some positions short this weekend just as a hedge. Shorting, I was going to buy some puts on SPY, but I did not today. I was too busy right up to the end. Busy. Yep, he did. Wolf, he said, I thought he was going to give him 10 days. That was a couple days ago. So we're already down to, 8-9 days left. But, he's not really good at sticking to a number, is he? He'd be like, I'm going to do 5 days. And then 2 days later, he goes, nah, I said 2. We're going to do it in 2. Let's go to the 10-year. 0.37. No big change here. Just a slight bump this week. I mean, overall, we're down for the week on the 10-year yield. But again, we talked about this a lot yesterday as China abandoning treasuries. It'd be interesting to keep our eye on not just the short-term treasuries, but the longer-term bonds as well, and see what happens with that yield. Again, I'm in Bill Addis's camp thinking this yield is going to go higher. If we issue some refunds, what do you think is going to happen to this yield? If we have to issue $200 billion of the refunds, you'll probably see this tick up here ever so slightly, because it means we're on the hook now for $200 billion more that we probably already blew through very, very quickly. Thank goodness we didn't send it out to all the taxpayers. All right, S&P, we talked about this one, up 0.67%. Most of that happening after the announcement. I mean, it sold off and then just started to rip. We're at 69.23, creeping towards that 7,000 mark. But if you look where we're at, we are dead center in the range that we've been stuck in since late November. So not a lot going on here. If you're a spread trader, now's the time. I think we got less here. Throw that iron condor on this bad boy. All right, podium time. Since we're on the Olympics, the bronze medal goes to the NASDAQ. Excuse me. Up 0.84%. Technically, what do we got cooking? Not a lot. It feels like weakness to me overall. I could, if you wanted to, just draw a line that goes through these points here. I mean, we're right pretty much at the downtrend line. And that's an aggressive downtrend line. I'm just trying to connect the tails there. We did pop above it today, and it looks like we actually closed above that. So, all right, maybe a turn coming here for the NASDAQ. All right, maybe a turn. Bitcoin, thank goodness, a little bit of breathing room for the weekend. 0.92% gain. Technically, I don't think like anything has really changed here, just a little positive action for Bitcoin, but it's still trending lower and pushing lower. At least it's holding at that 65,000 mark. Let's see what happens over the weekend. Ideally, we get a nice little pop over the weekend and start this thing moving. And then finally, GLD, gold. So gold shot up today a little bit, 1.67%. It came right back up into those highs we established late last week, which is okay, right? Coming back on that overhead supply level, not a strong one, but still coming up into it. We'll see what happens on Sunday night session if we can push above the high of today, which is about 51.22. If we get above that, there's not a lot to stop it. You guys can see this, the high here from February 11th. That's 51.44. So you get above 51.44, I think you're pretty much looking at heading towards all-time highs. There's really not much here to slow it down. No, unless we break this into maybe an hourly or 4-hour time frame. So all in all, looking pretty good here on gold. Even though it didn't make a new high, it got close. All right, what else did I have on my list for today? Oh, so the Tesla. It was a bit of a choppy one, not looking good from a technical perspective. We're sitting right at that 407 mark for Tesla, and I was going to sell some calls against it earlier today, and I just got sidetracked. I was out and did not get a chance to do that, so we'll have to sell some cover calls against this on Monday. Ideally, we get a little bit of a pop on Monday, but who knows? It's already down 50 cents in the after-hour session. And what else are you talking about? The Bitcoin futures? Looks like it's compressing to me, especially in that 1 hour time frame. Yeah. I'll just bring up the continuous contract here because it's going to look pretty much the same. If you just use it on the 1 hour time frame. I mean, there it is. That's our consolidation we're looking at. So I guess the good news here for everyone who is positive on crypto and Bitcoin and digital assets is basing, right? We're basing here. It actually looks like things might be getting slightly better because the lows have been getting slightly higher, just slightly higher, but we're not making higher highs. So it feels like it's just kind of flatlining. At least the stabilization, at least for me, feels like we're seeing a lack of fear. The panic may be gone. Atticus says bear flag. Yeah, I'd hate to say it, but I think you're right. If you look at this, that is a bear flag. Right? Now, depending on where you want to draw the pole from, it's all different. I would have drawn it from there to there. Right? So it's not a perfect bear flag. Some people, you look at this piece right here down at the bottom, and my friend would call this a high tight flag, where you're looking at, I'm going to pretty much do it from there, or you could do it from the peak, which is more of a pennant formation. But either way, you've got that after a really aggressive sell-off. In theory, this should continue the direction of the prevailing trend, which would not be good for those of us who are long on Bitcoin, because that would put Bitcoins down somewhere around $33,000. Let's hope that doesn't happen, Atticus. Let's hope. We know hope is a vowel-file, disgusting four-letter word when you talk about trading. So, yes, I would call that a bear flag myself. It just has that vibe, especially the way this blue line is. It just kind of keeps drifting lower and lower and lower. So let's hope it doesn't get there. Again, I told you I believe this time is different. I don't think that we're going to have that massive sell-off like we have in the past, but we shall see. We shall see. All right. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, yeah, let's get economic data in here, right? We've got to talk about some of that. So today's data, interesting. You had PPI numbers come out today. And if you're looking at producer price index month over month, there's your chart. It didn't give me the new data. It actually came out at 0.3. So we would have gone from 0.5 to hold on a second here. Why? Oh, I'm on the wrong day. That's not the core PCE. So you got the core PCE number came out today. I was building out the Monday Morning Must Knows for next week. You got the core PCE price index numbers came out today, February 20th, and that one came out higher than expected. So we've seen misleading information on the unemployment, right? 2 weeks ago, we had a really bad jobs data. Then a week ago was rather positive jobs data. It's like, okay, well, which way are we going here? This is the one that the Fed uses. And this bump today from 0.2 to 0.4, essentially doubling the rate of inflation that we had over the previous month, that is an indication that the Fed is in a tight spot. Now remember, they cut rates 3 times. Yours truly said they should not have done any of those. They should have waited and been data dependent. Next month will be really interesting because now we're going to get past, 6 months since their first rate cut here. And if we continue to see core PCE price index rally, you know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, you're going to hear more and more FOMC members saying, well, we may hold here. And then some of those that were holding before are going to shift and say, we may need to raise rates if we see inflation surge because they wanted it 2%. If you annualize 0.4, which, you don't have to annualize it. But if you do annualize 0.4, you're looking at 4.8% inflation for the year. That is well outside the Fed's norm, right? Now, I don't know which way this is going to go, obviously. It's very volatile, but I have been saying that those interest rate cuts that we did do, which they shouldn't have done in my opinion, are going to lead to inflation down the road. And this tick up was a little bit of a surprise because the other data we've had has not been showing inflation. And now all of a sudden we get the main index here showing inflation. So that's not that good. Robert says, will the Fed cut rates? In my opinion, what do I think they're going to do? I do not think they're going to cut rates. Now, what do I know, right? I'm not the one who makes the decision. If you want to see what the betting is, what the odds are, you can go to Kalshi, I'm sure has these odds, but I like to use the FedWatch site. This is put out by the CME, and right now the odds are 95, or I'm going to round up to 96% that there will be no rate cut at the next meeting. And I think that's the right thing to do. That's the right thing to do, is not, especially with that core PCE price index number we saw today. Now, I have not updated my spreadsheet that I built out for you guys, where I was kind of tracking what the numbers look like and how they would perform and who was, the scorecard, if you will. So I haven't done that yet. I will try to do that sometime soon here, just to have my scorecard. But here's the old one, but I need to update it. You look at that PCE number, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, and all of a sudden, 0.4. That's going to be red. That will be red. Red meaning that they're not going to raise rates. So based off that data, yeah, that's not a good sign. Definitely not a good sign that we had core PCE numbers come out that high. But, it's not the end of the world. There's certainly a lot of other data, especially when you look at the unemployment rate, right? Unemployment was 4.4, 4.6, 4.4, now, 4.3. So unemployment rate is looking better, but inflation may be getting just a wee little bit out of hand here, laddie. And if it does, the Fed is going to raise rates. I think, on my scorecard, I think your odds are better of raising rates first before cutting. Didn't they adjust last year's jobs numbers down by 400,000? I don't remember the exact number, but they did do revisions on that. They're always changing stuff. This is why I don't like the data. All I can do is just map out a chart of it and see what the trends are and see how things are going. But this one to me is concerning. If we went on PCE up to 0.4, which is only 1 point data, right? It's not the end of the world. It's only 1 point data. But if this does continue and we start to see more surges to the upside, let's get rid of that one. Let's go to core PCE. Then the pressure is on the Fed. Certainly the pressure is mounting on the Fed to hold and not cut rates anymore. Yet everyone is expecting them to cut rates. The other piece that was interesting is the advanced GDP. So if you look at advanced GDP, there's 3 different readings of it. This is, I think this is the first reading. So there's the advanced, then I think it's the preliminary, and then the final. I get them confused sometimes, but either way, this should not look very good. Previous number was 4.4%. They expected 2.8%. We came out at 1.4%. That's showing economic slowdown. Not great either. So, with PCE higher but jobs down, the Fed is caught in a tough spot. Yeah, absolutely. That's what was the stagflation is the other way around, right? So stagflation would be rising unemployment, rising inflation, and slow growth. What we have is slow growth, rising inflation potentially, not 1 point data doesn't make it yet, but unemployment getting lower. So stagflation would be if we have all 3 of those factors. We don't have them yet. We have unemployment still around 4.3%, but honestly, I feel like that number is cooked. I'm talking to so many people that are looking for work. I'm talking to so many people that run businesses, and they're telling me how AI is replacing workers like nonstop. I saw a very interesting video with a guy who is one of the eminent experts in AI, and he said his niece works in a healthcare company, and her job is essentially to respond to customer complaints or comments as they come in. And she's like, we used to take me like 30 minutes or so just to read and come up with a decent answer for each one of these. She says, now I just take them into a large language model like ChatGPT, where I've tailored it to give different responses, and I just throw it in there. And so instead of taking 30 minutes, it now takes me 5 minutes. So I've increased my productivity by 6x. So I'm 6 times more productive, which means I'm taking away 6 people's jobs for that one person. And that's just a letter responder or comment responder. Imagine how different it would be how much more significant it would be for other jobs out there. And I see more of that happening. I see more and more of that happening. So we'll see. Louis says, you've heard the opposite? that's creating more jobs? Okay. We shall see. Private jobs increase, government jobs decrease, probably an okay thing. Yeah, let's decrease government jobs as much as possible. Sorry for those of you who work in government, but they tend to not be the best with their spending. All right, so those are your kind of 2 big pieces of economic stuff that happened today. There's the flash manufacturing and services numbers, but that wasn't that big of a deal. The new home sales, I did like this. So they were expecting a pretty significant contraction. We didn't get it. They thought we were going to go from 758,000 down to 732. And here we are now at 745. So we did drop a little bit, but nowhere near expectations. I think it's good when you look at this number that it's holding here, kind of going sideways. I like that. I like that a lot. Luis says, no, it's not taking jobs away. Okay, I would beg to differ, but it's all right. We will see. I just look at my utilization of AI, and a lot of people I know are using it, and it's taking away jobs in their business, and sadly, some people are going to get let go here soon. What do you got? We could get rid of at least 586 more government jobs in my book. All Senate and Congress. That's good. I like that. Get rid of them. You know, at what point, and this is just a Star Trek type of question for everybody. At what point do we create a large language model and say, these are the issues that face the United States of America? I want you to prioritize the health and well-being of every American citizen. I want you to prioritize economic growth and keep those in mind. And instead of having a Senate, we have an AI model that votes on what we should be doing. It almost seems, Skynet type stuff, but, certainly there'll be checks and balances. But if you have an AI model that actually looks out for the best interest of the people and not political specific economic gain for each individual person in the House of Representatives or Congress, I kind of wouldn't mind trying it out. As long as you program in what we really want. And I think we'd all agree we want a good quality of life, not just for ourselves, but our fellow United States American citizens. I'd like to see, I'd like to see that everyone who is here pays into the system, right? I work hard, I pay my taxes. Anybody who lives here should be working hard and paying their taxes. Simple and easy. Make the admission process for people to become legal citizens much easier. Let's not make it where people are illegally coming through the border. Let's make our processes much more efficient so that issue goes away. The reality is we're all immigrants, aren't we? I would ban Cheetos. No, it would ban Cheetos. Absolutely big M. Certainly there would have to be, we don't have to accept it 100%, right? But I think if you had the model spit out, hey, here's the best course of action for alternative energy or for voting on pipelines or for, territorial, territorial expansion, I'd be interested to see how it would work. I kind of would like to see, somebody take a prototype of Claude and say, or ChatGPT, and actually build that model out, and let's see what it would actually come up with. It'd be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting to see what happens. But when you have someone like Musk who can manipulate large language models, I guess that it can be manipulated. They can all be manipulated. So let's not say just Elon Musk. You could talk about all the large language models on the back end could be manipulated, which is why I think it's really important on the development of your own proprietary system where you can control the inputs. So you have a team that monitors that. I agree. Louis says it's not reliable. I would argue it's pretty reliable, but yes, every response I get from ChatGPT, I have to verify, or Grok or whatever. You have to, especially when it comes to statistics and numbers. I've got so many mistakes, so many, it's ridiculous. Eventually, though, Luis, I think we'd all agree that the advancements in AI in the past 2 years have been absolutely unbelievable. Incredible how quickly it's advanced. I think within another 2 years, it's going to make no mistakes. I think it'll be AGI, right? It'll be human equivalent learning. Take all the great things from other countries and incorporate them into our country. How can the U.S. be 17th in healthcare? Where are we with education? Wolf, look that one up. If that isn't embarrassing, I don't know what is, right? We are one of the worst educationally in the world. That is embarrassment in my opinion. Yeah, we can improve in so many different ways. And maybe we just change the things we're teaching. I don't know. Excuse me for all the coughing, guys. I apologize for that. Let me get a friend of mine gave me a Shepherd coffee mug. No whiskey today, guys. Wolf says I'm too stupid looking. No, you're not. You can just go ask ChatGPT. When I was in Sweden, I had an eye injury. and I had to go to the emergency room over there. That's socialist healthcare, man. It worked great for me. All right, now we're going to get into socialism, communism debate, and I'm going to probably lose 30% of the followers because you mentioned socialism. Oh, I hate you, Merlin. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a socialist. All right, let's get off that topic. What else do you guys want to discuss here today? I don't really have much else other than, the Trump piece. I'm going to be gone Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I will be back on Thursday. I'll be happily back on Thursday. I'm hoping that the presentations I give on Monday are just epic. Really awesome. I've got a 2-hour presentation on Monday that told you about tokenomics that I've just fallen into the rabbit hole. It's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and if you look at my career path, the trajectory of Merlin Rothfeld, right? I wanted to go work for a financial planning firm. I wanted to be a financial advisor. I wanted to help people with their money and help them grow their money. I just think that there's some altruism there. Yes, I would be getting paid, but helping people I knew grow their wealth to me was what I wanted to do. And then I worked for a financial planning firm, and I just went, no, this is not for me. At least not with this firm and how they run it, and just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth about the entire industry. So I came down and I decided to just take a class on trading because that excited me. I like financial markets. And at the time, this is 1998, day trading was brand new. There were very few people who knew about day trading. I went back and I asked my professors at college, I said, what do you think about this? And they all said, don't do it. This is a scam. Don't do it. Don't sign up. Don't pay the money for that class. It's a scam. And I was like, oh, crap. And I went, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway because I think that this is just outside of their knowledge. A lot of professors don't understand the cutting edge technology. So I took the class. As you guys know, I've shared my story with you many times. The beginning, I failed miserably as a trader the first few months, and then I pulled my head out of my backside and said, okay, let me follow the rules. Let me build a plan. And I started to get better and better and better, and I started teaching. And then I really went into the rabbit hole of I want to immerse myself and become an expert in this. Not just a great trader, be good at trading, but really understand all the facets of it, right? Some people here, you just want to trade. You don't care about the new rules that come out by the SEC or how it impacts supply and demand or the times changes and how these little teeny things. I love that stuff. And all of a sudden, I was being headhunted by universities. I was being, keynote speeches at trade shows all around. I was speaking for banks in the U.S. and Italy. I was a university professor, all because I specialized in something that nobody really knew. And it's funny because here I am, almost 30 years later. And for those of you who know me, I've been talking about cryptocurrency as potentially being something that could change the entire financial system since I really discovered it in 2017. And there's people who have unfriended me, cursed my name, called me a scammer and a fraud because I've been talking about how I think Bitcoin and blockchain is going to revolutionize finance. Now all of a sudden, this thing's becoming more mainstream. And I'm a guy with 30 years trading experience. You would think that people would want me to come to the trade shows to talk about, hey, trade options, trade futures, trade Forex. How do you do these things? No. I am only wanted now for crypto. Everywhere I go, it's, hey, here's our crypto king. And I thought, damn, this is exactly what happened to me 30 years ago. I'm becoming an expert in something that now everybody wants to know about. And when you look at the systems in place, like what BlackRock is doing or Coinbase and Binance and all these other ones, it is really moving at an accelerated rate, and most people don't even know it's happening. And more I dive into it, the more I'm fascinated by it, the more excited I am for it. And I know that there's going to be a lot of failed projects in the crypto world. But 10 years down the road, I'm going to hold a portfolio of the king pieces, and I will be doing very well. And I still get traveled around the world to talk about this stuff, but I just think it's funny how I feel like it's repeating itself. If you're an expert in crypto or AI right now, you are well sought after. Who knew? Wolf says, my son is a finance major. His professors have zero idea of the futures markets, and they do not know where the different contracts. I know, it's so wild. I learned 1,000 times more. 50,000 times more when I just started trading on my own. When I was in college, I look back and I just kind of laugh, like, how can those people even call themselves professors? I look at what they taught me and it was ridiculous. And it basically is just it's textbook stuff, but that's not what markets are. Markets aren't textbook. Markets are a dynamic, growing, ebbing and flowing machine that constantly change. And that, to me, is the exciting part about trading. Dan says, that's why I ask Forex questions in the crypto class. Nah, it's okay, man. It's okay. Hey, ask questions that you want knowledge on, Dan. I always appreciate that. All right. I think I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I got 14 minutes left. Who taught you about crypto? No one specific person, Marcia. The short story is I was flying to Thailand, and I already bought some Bitcoin a couple years ago. I bought one Bitcoin a couple years before on a bulletin board, but didn't know. I didn't know why really I bought it. It was a couple $100 for Bitcoin back then. And then I said, let me research this thing because more people I knew talked about it. And I downloaded everything I could find on Bitcoin. Everything. I had IMF papers, I had university papers, and all these bulletin board stuff, and I was just reading up as much as I could. So that taught me why Bitcoin's important and where it goes, where I think it's going to go. And then I just started looking for experts that I could follow. And again, there's one guy that I used to love. His name was Ivan on Tech. He's got a YouTube channel. It's not worth going to him now. He's turned from somebody who was just pure education and extremely knowledgeable to, in my opinion, a grifter. He just pumps different things to float his own bags, right? He's always talking about just the things that he's in, and I think he's pumping. I think he's getting paid to pump scam coins. So people change. He's a good one. There's Andreas Antonopoulos is another very good one. Like if you want to know about Bitcoin exclusively, like details about Bitcoin, look at Andreas Antonopoulos. I could give you guys lists of different videos to check out, and depending on what you are into, There's a guy named Charles Hoskinson, which a lot of people think that he is a fraud as well. I don't. I think he's got real ambition, and I think he's got a more humanitarian side than most of the other developers, and that's Cardano. So he has an interview on Lex Friedman's podcast, as well as Vitalik Buterin and Sergey Nazarov. Those are 3 really great interviews you guys should check out if you want to know more about that one. I heard about Bitcoin in the early days, but thought it was a scam. I didn't buy it until a couple years ago. Okay. Wolf. The reality is, if it does what I think it's going to do, you're not late to the game. You're right on time. We'll look back at these 60,000 levels and go, wow, can you imagine if you bought Bitcoin at 60,000? Man, I'd be rich today. Things we'll get back. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, the cough's annoying. It's the coughs and the sinuses. Other than that, I feel great. So, yeah. Big I bought in 2020. Okay, 2020, you were down for a while. You were probably pretty upset because in 2021 into 2022, it took a big nosedive, right? That was a pretty significant drop. And now we're in the midst of the next 4-year cycle, so we might get a big drop here. But hopefully long-term, Big Eb, you'll be happy with the decision. And I, got the Rona? No, Candle. I just have a sinus and a cough. No body aches, no chills, no fever, nothing like that. I feel totally fine. It's just my sinuses are a complete mess. Luckily, I'm not flying to Vegas. I'm driving to Vegas, so we'll see how that goes. Okay. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Again, no show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Apologize for that. I just don't have time, and I don't want to do it from a hotel lobby or something like that. So if I see you in Vegas, that'd be awesome. Just come up and say hi. I'll be floating around. On Monday is like my real busy day. I have Sunday a panel discussion. It's only 30-minute panel. It's remarkable. We have 4 presenters in 30-minute panel, and I want to hear all these people speak longer, but anyway, it'll be fun. So I will see you guys then. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you next Thursday. Again, email me if you have any questions, comments, things you want to discuss on next week's show, and I'll see you then. Take care.